So hello everyone, I'm Sanjang, and today I'd like to talk more about the experience that I encountered while I reviewing the MR, or if I create an MR, how to find the right review environment, and some tricks if I like to share with the whole team. So as Pedro just mentioned before, we have really nice table in our handbook, and then there are several different ways to review it. Like we can use Gitlab, we can use the local GDK, and there's also the review app option. Of course, there is always a chance to talk to the author. But is it only me that always feel confused, like, okay, should I just run the GDK start on my local GDK, or should I just hit the button to open a new workspace for GitHub? I hope it's not the only one. Like, I always feel this way, and I don't know how to use what, which is the most efficient way to deal with this. So I'd like to share some of the tips that I encountered by myself that includes some of the mistake and some of the process in the handbook. So first things, very important things to know, I sometimes made this mistake that like, I sometimes forget to add the license. So I cannot view the MR like, okay, I set up everything, but I couldn't view those changes. That means you have to check your license. So if you have already one, then you could just add them into the admin area UI. Here's the docs link. It's really easy. You can just copy and paste it. But if you don't have one, you would need to open an access request. You need to wait for the manager approval, and then you'll get the license via email. But the good news is adding license flow for the using GitHub will be automated soon. That's what I've heard. And then we'll see. I don't think like we need to redo this like for every time for maybe 2 or 3 milestones later. So that's a good news. And I also encountered this, like how to enable the feature flag, like GDK, GitHub. And my first concern comes out here, like, okay, like you can just open the Rails console, like, but I didn't know how, like how to open the Rails console. So I'm always seeing the terminal. And you can just type the Rails C, and then that takes normally a couple of times. And then you can just see, okay, you're on the different area. You can notice it really quickly. And then you can type the feature enable with the feature flag names. And then you could also do the exist or command C or control C. It'll just exist the Rails code, Rails console. And it's surprisingly, it's also supported by the review app. So I also added a link to the video guide created by myself. And I sometimes make this mistake, like, okay, I still cannot view the changes. That means probably it's because of the cookie problem. In that case, it's safer to view the MR on the incognito windows, or check if you added the right license, because I always made mistake. And also how to configure GitLab Runner. I have went through this like process yesterday, like for Gitpod and GDK, that each of the process should take like less than 15 minutes because the guide was pretty straightforward. And then the most important thing to use Gitpod is you have to make sure that the port 3000 to make public, and then you can find the left menu, and then you can just click the lock icon. And then also using it on the GDK was pretty straightforward. And so for the real tips, like, okay, how can we maintain our GDK healthy? I think that would be the top question. So what I normally do in my morning when I just start working, I just like bring a cup of coffee and then just run this test like a robot. That's literally my morning started. And sometimes there's a problem, like you'll see like 502 error, and then like it's just keep running. It seems like it's running, but it never shows up. That means probably something is outdated. So what I would recommend you to do is navigate to the GitLab folder and then yarn install and bundle install. I think most of the time it solves the error. I don't know why, don't ask me why, but it really worked. And then if you just restarting your GDK, and it will appear on the web less than in 10 minutes. And if you encountered any problem, Sorry, I just put your name, Tori, here, but it was written on our help section, so you could ask me or ask Tori for help. And for using GeoJDK, so there is a good news that we have simple installation, which takes up around 1.5 hours. I know it's a bit too long, but compared to the previous workflow, it's already way better. Sorry, I don't think it's GDK1, it should be GDK2. So if you install GeoJDK, and then you'll see 2 different GDK in parallel. The first one is the primary one, and then the secondary is also installed in parallel. You should check the file structure because that matters how the database communicate each other. And you also have to keep in mind, if you decided to keep this geo-enabled GDK, that when you update this geo-enabled GDK, you have to use slightly different comments every day for updating and keep the main branch always the latest version. And for the Git pod, I think this is one of the benefits of using Git pod is like you don't need to maintain the branch, because whenever you start from this MR page, going to the right top and then opening Git pod, that means it creates a really fresh new GDK. It started. I also tested yesterday. It took like less than 15 minutes. So it's just not that a big deal. And then there's also a docs for the advanced configuration that I didn't introduce here, like for example, Elasticsearch and billing and a couple of others. And if you have any problems, sorry, Marcel, I also put your name here. So ask Marcel or ask the GitPod GDK channel. So summary, like choose whatever you feel the most comfortable. And I think there are both pros and cons. Like GitPod, like it's very powerful. We could also use the feature flag runner, and the customer .gitlab.com, that project is work in progress on some updates. So it'll be available in a couple of days. That's what I've heard. And it doesn't need any maintenance, so that's very cool. But using GDK is also very powerful. That allow us to navigate to the Geo UI. That's very important things for me. And it's all in one local environment. So once you configure your runner on your GDK, then like it needs maintenance, like updating GDK every day, but you can just use it whenever you want. And the review app is also could be very powerful since we have the visual review changes on and commenting area. So I think it's very handy for the reviewing the small changes with the inspection tool on your selected browser, and also especially handy for the handbook updates. And it's not done yet because I like to share some of the mistakes that I made for the past few months. So the first problem was like, I couldn't find a reviewer. I got pinged by an engineer and I couldn't find my name. Where am I? Or this should be part of the other designers review. Like, how can I deal with this situation? But Pedro, fortunately, already covered in his presentation a bit. So what you need to do is just rerun the danger review boot under the stage type test pipeline. And it works only the GitLab or GitLab project for now, but it will be expanding soon, applying to the whole group level. Or there's also certain case that you miss the whole like front-end reviewer and the maintainer reviewers. In that case, I reach out to different engineers and engineering channel. What they ask me to do is just go into this link and then spin the wheel button, and then they will just let me know who to talk to. And then I just create a screenshot and then ping them, hey, could you please review? So this would also work. And this was also the mistake that I made before. I couldn't find the review app link because it was not deployed. So if you are creating the MR, then you sometimes need to, it's very easy to be missed that you don't hit the deploy button. So make sure that you deploy the review app so that the reviewer could easily review those MR. And you also have to keep in mind that it's gone into business day. So in that case, you can restart the start review a pipeline, and then we try the review deploy, then it'll show up to the new deployments URL. So I hope now you feel a little bit more confident. And then, yeah, I'm still struggling. I just try to like reduce the stress level whenever I encounter this problem, and I hope you feel the same. And lastly, I also like to share this question that I have in mind. So for now, we're focusing on this topic branch level. Thank you for the graphic. This is lovely. So we're discussing for this level UI review, UX review here, UX review here. So what about this? Like as a stage group designer, I sometimes want to overlook like what's happening per release level. And I kind of feel this needs to review the staging before it goes to the production. So I would like to share with you that there is a staging ref, which is the mirror of staging. And then it uses a local database with dummy data. So you could do and adjust your web settings, and you could also enable feature flag. So here's the handbook link so that you can refer to later this presentation. And also there's a staging. This is literally same with the production, but it's pseudonymized database. So it means you cannot like run through the administrative task, but it's really easy to see the overview before it goes on the production level. So thank you. I made some mistake in the very beginning, but thank you for providing a lot of feedback, Marcel and Zach on the Geo front-end team and Nadia in the quality team. Do you have any questions?